Nothing warms the heart like people of different faiths coming together in difficult times, especially when the tolerance and compromise are always flowing in one direction only. Reuters reports. A Berlin church is hosting Muslims who are unable to fit into their mosque for Friday prayers because of social distancing guidelines. Let me say here at the beginning that I'm all for Christians helping Muslims. If a Muslim needs food, I'm all for Christians giving him some food. If a Muslim needs a place to stay, I'm all for Christians helping him find a place to stay. But for some reason, these stories about churches hosting Islamic prayer and worship always end with Christians somehow participating in the Islamic prayer and worship. The Dar Assalam Mosque in the Neukölln district normally welcomes hundreds of Muslims to its Friday services. But it can currently only accommodate 50 people at a time under Germany's coronavirus restrictions. During the holy fasting, I think that's a typo, should be feasting, month of Ramadan, the nearby Martha Lutheran Church stepped in to help, hosting Muslim prayers in Arabic and German. It is a great sign, and it brings joy in Ramadan and joy amid this crisis, said Muhammad Taha Sabri, the mosque's imam who led his congregation in prayer, watched over by a stained glass window depicting the Virgin Mary. Are your hearts warm yet? Muslims could have prayed in their mosque in batches of 50, but why not move the prayers to a local church, especially when the church is eager to invite Muslims to pray to the great God Allah, who commands his adherents to violently subjugate Jews and Christians. This pandemic has made us a community. Crises bring people get together. Places of worship reopened in Germany on May 4th after being shut for weeks under a coronavirus lockdown, but worshippers must maintain a minimum distance from one another of 1.5 meters. The church, a red brick neo-Renaissance building in Berlin's Kreuzberg district, could hardly offer a sharper contrast to the cultural center in Neukölln, where the Muslim congregation is accustomed to gathering. It was a strange feeling because of the musical instruments, the pictures, said worshipper Samir Hamdoun. But when you look, when you forget the small details, this is the house of God in the end. They're all the house of the great God Allah, if you're a Muslim. Just ask the pagans of Mecca. Their house of worship is now Islam's holiest site. And ask the pagans and Jews of Medina, who invited Muhammad and his followers in. Of course, the pagans eventually had to convert, and the Jews were expelled or slaughtered, but at least there's a huge mosque there now. And don't get me started on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, or the Hagia Sophia, at one time the world's largest church, or all the Zoroastrian and Hindu temples that were converted into mosques. Just open your houses of worship and trust in the good intentions of the adherents of a book that calls Jews, Christians, and polytheists the worst of creatures, and which says that all religion will soon be solely for Allah. The Islamic Council, an umbrella group of 400 mosques, said in April that many face bankruptcy because the closures stretched into the holy feasting month of Ramadan, usually a vital period for donations. The church's pastor, Monica Matthias, said she had felt moved by the Muslim call to prayer. I took part in the prayer, she said. Here we go. I gave a speech in German, and during prayer, I could only say, yes, 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 because we have the same concerns and we want to learn from you. And it is beautiful to feel that way about each other. I'm sure the feeling is mutual. Do you know what Muslims say during their prayers? Not that it matters much to the German pastor who kept saying, yes, yes, yes. Now, the Apostle Paul in 1 Corinthians 14:16 said, how can an outsider say amen to your thanksgiving if he doesn't know what you're saying? But by all means, say amen to Islamic prayers without having any clue what's being said. What could go wrong? Muslims recite Surat al-Fatiha during their prayers. That's Surah 1 of the Quran. It's short, so let's go ahead and read it. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful, All the praises and thanks be to Allah, the Lord of the Alameen, mankind, jinn, and all that exists, the most gracious, the most merciful, the only owner, and the only ruling judge of the day of recompense, i.e., the day of resurrection. You alone we worship, and you alone we ask for help for each and everything. Guide us to the straight way, the way of those on whom you have bestowed your grace, not the way of those who earned your anger, such as the Jews, nor of those who went astray, such as the Christians. The translators add comments about Jews and Christians because, according to Muhammad and his companions, the phrase, those who earned your anger, refers to Jews, and the phrase, those who went astray, refers to Christians. So when Muslims pray, they're actually praying, O Allah, guide us to the straight way, the way of Muslims, not the way of Jews and Christians. They declare that Allah, the God of the Quran, who condemns the deity of Christ and the doctrine of the Trinity, is Lord over all that exists. And a Christian pastor, overwhelmed by the beautiful prayers, can only say, yes, yes, yes. Ever notice that these displays of solidarity always go in one direction? Either churches open their doors for Islamic prayers, or Muslims invite Christians into mosques to recite Islamic prayers. Women put on hijabs to show their solidarity, but it never occurs to Muslim women to dress like non-Muslim women to show their solidarity. Again, I'm all for Christians helping non-Christians, but I'm against being stupid. Jesus said, "Be wise as serpents, harmless as doves." He didn't say, "Be as stupid as a dove feeding itself to a serpent."